Iraqi Dinar Today latest news. The information circulating among key banking contacts, seasoned financial analysts, and prominent regional economic observers is suggesting that we may be approaching a significant period of change, a development that many have anticipated for years but have not yet witnessed on this scale. For over a decade, the potential revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, commonly referred to as the IQD, has been a central topic of discussion across global financial forums, specialized investment groups, and various economic circles. However, as we move into the current era, the underlying sentiment has undergone a profound transformation. What was once largely dismissed as scattered, unverified speculation is now being substantiated by increasingly coordinated reports, clear movements within the international banking infrastructure, and measurable internal policy shifts that are capturing the serious attention of financial professionals worldwide. The nature of these developments implies a structured, systematic approach to potential monetary adjustment that warrants detailed examination by anyone monitoring these specific emerging markets. This extended news briefing is dedicated to meticulously dissecting the specifics of the current reports. We will examine precisely what is being circulated among contacts, why these foundational developments hold such considerable weight in the context of global finance, and how these internal shifts could eventually impact the broader international currency markets. Furthermore, we will explore why a growing number of analysts are positing that the world may be drawing near a critical moment, capable of significantly altering the economic landscape for both Iraq and Vietnam. It is crucial to remain engaged through the entirety of this report, as grasping the full and complex context behind these emerging signals is now more vital than ever before for informed understanding. The pattern of information is more consistent and structured than in any previous period, compelling us to look beyond simple rumors and into the facts of institutional preparedness. The overall atmosphere surrounding the Iraqi dinar currently feels distinctly different from anything observed in the past. Historically, updates related to the IQD were often vague, fragmented, and typically lacked any concrete, verifiable substance. Yet, a fundamental change has occurred, and new reports are consistently surfacing, detailing how internal banking systems across the globe are quietly adjusting their placeholder values for the Iraqi dinar. This action is generating a level of genuine, professional interest that was previously absent. It is vital to understand that these placeholders are not the public, official exchange rates visible to everyday customers or available on consumer-facing currency converters. Instead, they represent the types of internal, algorithmic testing procedures that major financial institutions habitually initiate in advance of a significant, pre-planned currency change coming into effect. According to insights provided by analysts who are intimately familiar with these complex, behind-the-scenes banking processes, these internal placeholder figures are utilized for essential functions. They serve to test the reliability of liquidity models, verify the consistency and accuracy of conversion calculations across various global systems, and ensure a state of compliance readiness for forthcoming regulatory changes. While no credible source claims that these internal system tests confirm a definitive date for a public rollout or guarantee that a change will occur, the remarkable consistency and the precise timing of these reports have fundamentally shifted the entire nature of the public and professional conversation. The structured pattern of this preparatory activity appears far more organized and comprehensive than during any previous cycle, leading many observers to conclude that Iraq may finally be entering a critical, technical preparation phase that previous years never genuinely achieved. One specific, internal figure that is receiving widespread discussion and analysis within these financial circles involves a potential test rate reportedly circulating near the $4.04 range. This specific figure is neither public nor officially confirmed by any government or central bank, but it has generated substantial attention because internal test rates frequently correspond to benchmark values that are aligned with a nation's stated long-term economic objectives. Iraq possesses staggering natural wealth, particularly in its massive oil reserves. But years of intense conflict and systemic economic disruption have kept its national currency substantially undervalued for far too long. However, with the current administration demonstrating increasing financial discipline, aggressively pursuing banking reforms, and working toward the comprehensive modernization of its financial systems, many analysts now convincingly argue that a substantially stronger, more representative currency value is a logical fit for Iraq's long-term national economic vision. It is a well-documented historical fact that Iraq's currency once commanded significant international value prior to periods of conflict and instability. Furthermore, many contemporary economists are convinced that as the nation systematically continues its process of comprehensive rebuilding and sustained stabilization, a significantly stronger dinar would be instrumental in helping the country firmly reassert its rightful position of influence in the Middle Eastern and global trade spheres. The unprecedented increase in attention now focused on these internal banking system tests is directly and intrinsically linked to Iraq's recent, sweeping program of financial and governance reforms. These are not minor adjustments, but fundamental policy changes that set the stage for major shifts in the nation's monetary outlook and international financial credibility. Over the past few years, the Iraqi government has purposefully introduced a series of major changes, including the aggressive tightening of anti-corruption laws, a fundamental restructuring of the entire banking sector, the broad expansion of digital payment networks, and the rigorous alignment of its domestic financial systems with established international standards. Crucially, government leaders have repeatedly and openly communicated their firm intention to see the dinar strengthen in the near future, consistently emphasizing that the currency's valuation must accurately reflect the nation's immense underlying economic potential and its strategic importance. When a sovereign government so clearly and publicly aligns its domestic policy with its long-term monetary goals, financial analysts are naturally compelled to pay the closest possible attention, interpreting these statements as a declaration of intent. The combination of these sustained, deliberate, and high-level reforms, coupled with the latest reports of internal movements within the international banking architecture, has created a demonstrable momentum that stands apart from any previous speculative cycle. It is increasingly evident to observers that Iraq is intentionally positioning itself to reintroduce its economy to the global financial stage in a much stronger, far more transparent, and ultimately more credible manner. This strategic preparation is about laying the proper groundwork for future global participation. It is a slow, methodical process that must be completed before any major currency decision can be technically and economically viable for a nation of Iraq's size and complexity. One particularly major development contributing to this shift in perception is Iraq's notable and proactive push toward establishing a digital dinar. This is not a reference to decentralized cryptocurrencies. Rather, a central bank digital currency (CBDC) is a government-backed system designed explicitly to maximize transparency, dramatically reduce opportunities for corruption, and make all financial transactions significantly more secure and efficient for the entire population. For Iraq, transitioning toward a fully digital national currency system is a potent signal of its readiness for much greater integration with established international banking frameworks and regulatory oversight, bolstering foreign confidence. Analysts observe that such government-backed digital systems are highly effective in streamlining complex cross-border transactions and are essential tools for strengthening international trust and financial ties. When this deliberate push toward a digital dinar is considered alongside the concurrent reports of internal rate testing within major banking systems, many experts believe this digital initiative is not merely a technical upgrade. Instead, they interpret it as a fundamental component of a much broader, integrated strategy to position Iraq for a potential future adjustment in its currency's value, transforming the financial backbone of the entire nation in the process. It is also important to note that Iraq is not navigating this comprehensive reform process in isolation. Multiple prominent global financial institutions and specialized advisors have been actively working in partnership with the country to assist in the critical updating of its financial infrastructure, the enhancement of its regulatory transparency, and the deliberate synchronization of its domestic banking operations to meet and adhere to strict international compliance standards. For any nation preparing for a major currency transition or a substantial economic shift, aligning closely with external, neutral international partners is a fundamentally crucial and often mandatory step that lends credibility to the entire process. Iraq's recent, clear commitment to significantly improving its foreign exchange operations, strengthening its regulatory oversight mechanisms, and thoroughly modernizing its core financial tools indicates, without ambiguity, that the country is preparing for a deeper, more substantial level of participation in global financial markets. While whether this intensive preparation directly and immediately translates into a public currency revaluation is a point that remains open for professional debate, these ongoing efforts represent the foundational steps that are almost invariably taken before any significant, systematic monetary changes are introduced to the global stage. These are the technical and legal precursors to a shift. Turning our attention to the Vietnamese Dong VND, Vietnam's economic trajectory is distinctively different from Iraq's, but it holds an equally central position in contemporary discussions about future currency movement. Vietnam has successfully transformed itself, evolving into one of Asia's most dynamic and essential manufacturing and export hubs. It has successfully accumulated substantial foreign currency reserves, consistently attracted massive international investment, greatly expanded its strategic trade partnerships, and now plays an increasingly crucial role in complex global supply chains. Despite this impressive and sustained economic expansion, the Vietnamese dong continues to maintain a comparatively low valuation, a circumstance that a growing number of analysts believe does not accurately or fully reflect the country's profound underlying economic strength and growing global importance. Vietnam rarely issues public, bold statements regarding its specific future monetary plans, preferring a cautious, internal approach. However, its steady, verifiable economic progress has led many informed observers to seriously consider the possibility of a controlled, gradual currency shift or adjustment in the coming years, with some specifically pointing to 2025 as a potentially pivotal point in Vietnam's documented long-term economic roadmap. Vietnam's characteristic approach to economic management is frequently described by experts as patient, deliberate, and strategically paced. In contrast to Iraq, which is compelled to move rapidly due to necessary post-conflict rebuilding efforts and reforms, Vietnam has been systematically and gradually building its impressive economic strength over the course of many decades. This methodical process includes entering new and complex trade alliances, continuously strengthening its foreign currency reserves, and actively promoting secure digital payment systems across its economy. Every one of these continuous improvements is aligned with a clear, long-range national plan designed to transition Vietnam into a more competitive, higher-value global economy. Because of this documented and predictable long-term trajectory, analysts who discuss the possibility of a future currency adjustment in Vietnam are referring to its consistent, documented progress and established economic path. Any eventual change in the VND value would logically be planned, measured, and carefully managed by the State Bank of Vietnam, rather than being an abrupt or sudden event. This strategic, long-view planning is a defining characteristic of Vietnam's financial management and provides a different context for discussion compared to the situation in Iraq. Some long-term market observers often mention the distinct possibility of a dual shift, the concept that two major, historically undervalued currencies might both strengthen around the same general period, even without any formal, coordinated international plan. This theory is often rooted in the historical tendency of regional and emerging economies to adjust their monetary positions in coordinated clusters when underlying global or regional trade dynamics undergo a fundamental change. Should Iraq successfully improve its financial stability and currency strength, investor attention could naturally pivot toward other similar emerging markets with strong fundamentals, such as Vietnam. This redirected attention could act as a catalyst, encouraging Vietnam to potentially accelerate certain domestic reforms to maintain its competitive edge and global attractiveness. While this dual shift scenario remains entirely speculative and nothing is confirmed, analysts suggest the possibility is worth watching closely because global financial markets frequently respond to major regional economic changes in predictable waves, creating a domino effect that influences policy decisions in neighboring countries. These broader discussions are gaining unprecedented traction now because the global dynamics of currency management are visibly changing. An increasing number of nations are seeking to reduce their financial dependence on a few dominant global currencies, pursuing instead greater economic autonomy and representation. Countries endowed with strong natural resources, or those boasting booming industrial bases, naturally desire their currencies to be true reflections of their national economic power. Iraq, with its massive oil wealth, and Vietnam, with its rapidly expanding manufacturing and export base, stand as prime examples of this significant global trend toward a more balanced financial world. Financial analysts believe the world is currently entering a new phase where numerous undervalued currencies may begin to reclaim their legitimate value as nations collectively strive for greater financial balance and more equitable representation on the global economic stage. This movement is a reflection of shifts in global trade, geopolitics, and monetary policy, creating an environment where a reassessment of national currency values becomes not just possible, but perhaps economically necessary for the countries involved. To fully grasp the core reasoning behind the speculative $4.04 internal test rate reportedly circulating for the Iraqi dinar, analysts consistently emphasize the profound and glaring disconnect between Iraq's immense natural resource wealth and its current low modern currency valuation. With some of the world's largest proven oil reserves, continuously growing gold reserves, a steady trend toward political stabilization, and increasing levels of foreign direct investment, Iraq clearly possesses strong underlying economic fundamentals that justify a higher currency value in a normalized environment. When Iraq's economic foundation is structurally compared to other countries that currently possess much more valuable currencies but far fewer natural resources, the fundamental imbalance in the current valuation becomes strikingly clear. Many experts are convinced that if Iraq successfully continues its focused modernization and reform progress, a stronger, more realistic currency would not only be a logical next step, but may become an absolute necessity for the successful achievement of its long-term economic vision, as its national wealth needs a currency that can effectively leverage it. The specific internal test rate figure that is being widely discussed aligns closely with this comprehensive line of thinking, according to numerous financial observers following the situation closely. The pervasive reports of bank screens displaying test values, although they remain strictly unconfirmed by official public statements, are a principal reason why analysts believe a genuine currency shift may be actively approaching. Banks meticulously perform these detailed system checks to ensure that their software, complex liquidity models, regulatory compliance rules, and large-scale international transfer mechanisms can flawlessly handle an abrupt transition to new, higher currency values. These critical tests are never initiated casually. They are typically triggered only when significant changes are reliably expected, or when a formal preparation phase is officially underway behind the scenes. While these internal system movements do not in any way signal an immediate public change, analogous patterns of prepositioning have been observed and documented in past successful currency adjustments around the world. This informational pattern does not confirm the final outcome, but it strongly suggests that the systematic, technical process is actively progressing at an institutional level, far away from public scrutiny and speculation. The simple fact that the mechanisms for change are being tested indicates a profound level of preparedness that transcends mere discussion. The Iraqi government has also played a significant role in contributing to the rising expectations and focused attention. Key officials have consistently and publicly stressed the crucial importance of strengthening the national currency as an integral part of their broader, stated economic and political goals. When national leaders deliberately and openly address the sensitive topic of currency value, it almost always signals that active, high-level policy discussions and implementation plans are already in motion. Iraq's deepening international cooperation, its increased commitment to financial transparency, and its deliberate, sustained steps toward becoming a more influential regional economic force all strongly point to serious and intentional groundwork being laid. When all these systematic policy moves are combined with the parallel development of a digital national currency, the overall direction of the nation's financial policy appears to be unequivocally intentional, designed to culminate in a stronger standing on the world stage. The specific timing of any potential adjustment remains one of the most unpredictable and speculative aspects of the entire discussion. Analysts often observe that many governments strategically prefer to implement major financial changes around the beginning or end of their national fiscal cycles, as this aligns with budgeting and reporting. This general tendency has led some to speculate that any shift, if it were to occur, might align with such institutional windows. However, historical timing predictions related to the IQD have proven notoriously unreliable, and analysts strongly caution that while reforms and system upgrades set the stage, they do not guarantee the final, definitive moment of change. What can be stated with a high degree of certainty is that Iraq is actively and systematically preparing its core financial infrastructure for distinct possibilities that were not technically or logistically feasible even a few years ago. This groundwork is the real story, a nation fundamentally overhauling its systems for a future potential change. Meanwhile, Vietnam's timing is linked more predictably to its ongoing, successful economic milestones, rather than any sudden, corrective movement. Many observers point to the current period as one where major trade expansions, digital infrastructure upgrades, and aggressive export strategies naturally converge, creating the right economic conditions for a potential gradual currency shift that recognizes the nation's sustained growth. Global economy is demonstrably shifting toward a more diversified, multipolar monetary structure, a trend that grants emerging nations greater control and autonomy over their financial destinies. Should both Iraq and Vietnam successfully strengthen their currencies within the same broad period, it would represent a tangible, real-world example of this significant shift toward a financial world that is far more balanced and less dependent on a single currency dominance. The concept that these unfolding events could profoundly affect the existing financial system is ultimately based on the concrete, verifiable changes being implemented right now. The extensive preparations underway in Iraq, including its digital advancements, the reports of internal banking tests, and the comprehensive economic reforms are undeniable facts. Vietnam's relentless rise in economic power, its continuously expanding international partnerships, and its steady, cautious modernization are equally evident and well documented. Regardless of whether this systemic activity ultimately results in a sudden, major adjustment or a more gradual strengthening of their respective currencies, both nations are demonstrably charting a course toward stronger, more influential economic futures. The coming months and years will be absolutely crucial for clarity, and we will continue to provide comprehensive coverage of every credible update, every confirmed policy change, and every major verifiable development as they unfold. Stay informed and be prepared, as the global financial system may be entering one of its most transformative and important periods in recent memory.